Hey, I'm Dan Harris, host of the 10% Happier podcast. When life gets a little rough, sometimes we feel this overwhelming urge to fix everything, which really is impossible. So I've got a new series coming up called Reset, where we're going to help you find simple, practical, surgical ways to reset key areas of your life. The lineup is incredible. We've got people like Gretchen Rubin, Laurie Santos, Atul Gawande, and The Daily Show's Josh Johnson. 10% Happier with Dan Harris. Join the party wherever you get your podcasts.
911, what's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashlie Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. Clint, how are you?
I'm really good.
Today we're going to talk about this invisible line between dedication and self-destruction in law enforcement. And that's bravo.
And that's bravo. When we start having this, you start leaning into these unhealthy habits, going out and drinking, partying all the time. You start, spending your money. You start like having those self-destructive habits on a regular basis because that's your new normal. Instead of leaning into, that the healthy side of things, going to the gym and working out, finding those outlets. But when we lean into those self-destructive habits and not have that balance and I think a lot of it comes down to our own identity of who we are.
It's actually really interesting when we break it down because there's this line between dedication that serves the mission and dedication that quietly becomes self-destruction wearing this costume of commitment.
I think we have this identity, we have this mindset of this is who I should be as a cop. This is because think about it this way. If you're a cop, a firefighter, any first responder, who's ever asked you what your own definition of that person is? You get the boilerplate, I'm here to protect and serve the community. And I get that, but what does that mean to you? And I don't think we dive deep enough into that question on a regular basis. And we don't spend enough time educating one another on, okay, this is who you're supposed to be. This is what we should be doing as a law enforcement.
Yeah. The problem with this line is that it's invisible from the inside. So it looks like dedication from the outside and feels like dedication from the inside can cross into something far more dangerous without a single dramatic moment announcing the transition.
And I think, you see those habits of, showing up to work all the time, always actively doing, like I had to have a conversation with my guys recently and said, hey, I don't want to see you guys over here doing this anymore because I knew what they were doing and I don't want them to chase that because that's not part of our duties. That's not part of our responsibilities of what our team does. And I have to explicitly tell them, I don't want you doing that anymore.
The psychological concept here is pathological dedication and martyrdom identity in high-stakes careers especially. And this develops when the commitment to a role or to a mission crosses from a healthy investment into self-sacrificial destruction, basically.
Yeah, and I think when we start seeing this, because you start seeing your peers, you start seeing one another, and I think we have this culture in law enforcement agencies of, peers support peers. Like we have the blind leading the blind on so many different instances, but where do we step in and say, no, that this isn't right, or we need to change this?
Yeah. And I think it's important to understand that how this actually happens. And it's when an individual constantly prioritizes their job over their own physical health, their own mental well-being, their relationship needs, and then sometimes their basic human limits. And this is a pattern in law enforcement. We see it continuously. And not only that, but I also think that it's culturally celebrated.
Yeah, you have so many guys. This is the perfect example. You have guys chasing guns all the time. They're chasing the guns. They articulate, but it's saving, I just saved someone's life by getting this gun off the streets today. And cool, I get that. But they're so invested on that. But they start having this measuring contest with their partners. Oh, how many guns did you get last week? And you start having this. It's good to have competition, but being able to not be so enthralled in it, that's all you do. Because I think when you start focusing in on something like that so much, that we start taking away from what our actual goals are. My chief said something recently that I was like, you know what? He's absolutely right. And this is the perfect example is, we go out, we have shootings in one specific area, and we get a gang team. We have these guys effectively going after that specific gang. And that's one instance, right? You have this one homicide, you have this one instance, but then you correlate that to actually what the majority of the community cares about, like the quality of life stuff, the dealing with the transients, the thing that 70% of our calls for service are correlated to. What are we doing to go after that problem and try to addressing it and fixing it?
There are a lot of signs that dedication is crossed into self-destruction. And I think the most important thing is to just be honest with yourself about it. And I think the most is that you wear your sacrifice as this badge of honor rather than a warning sign. And that cost has become your identity.
And I think we can specifically think of multiple people who do that. And they wear that, and that's all you ever see from them. And they play that victim card on a regular basis. We would call it a victim card because of we know what's really going on in that situation. But in all reality, they're putting this identity of who they are instead of really getting down to what the brass tacks of the problem is.
Something else that I see is that you might have dismissed physical symptoms that basically any other person would have addressed immediately, because stopping feels like failure and pushing through feels like your strength.
And I think we identify so much of that stuff as failure all the time instead of, like you said, instead of identifying that as strength. Because instead of looking at something, well, this didn't happen the way I planned it, so we start saying, well, I failed at doing this, so I'm going to have to change my approach on it. Well, no, that's not the case. That's okay. It's information. And I don't think we take enough of this stuff on a regular basis as information, be able to learn from it and adapt to it.
Another thing that I see too is that for some people, their relationships have been placed consistently behind the job without any kind of examination. And the people that you love the most have learned not to compete.
And that's where, when we stop competing and you start seeing your inner circles, kind of withdrawing and separating themselves from you and not having a competition with you, you start seeing that you start moving out on your own island by yourself more and more, instead of swimming out to that island and being on the island with your loved ones, with your partners that have moved beyond that.
Another thing too is that I see people that feel more comfortable destroying themselves for the job than they do protecting themselves from it.
And I think that's what is currently going on in this day to day. And then especially those of us who are more senior, you see, like, we always give, oh, well, they're young, they're going to learn on their own. They're going to be able to see the difference, years down the line. Well, why don't we as the senior law enforcement or first responder be able to start guiding them, helping them? Yes, they have to be open to that and to want that, but we need to change the actual definition of who we think we're supposed to be in the academy.
One thing I wish that they taught in the academy is ways to be able to find that line before it finds you. And one aspect of this in particular would be to examine the difference between what you're willing to give and what the job has conditioned you to surrender. Being able to prepare for that ahead of time would set a lot of first responders up completely differently throughout their career.
We focus so much on addressing the threats and dealing with everyone has a gun, watch your hands, and officer safety is huge, and it needs to be, but we don't address any of the issues that we deal with on a regular basis of, this is the trauma associated to being in law enforcement. This is what you have to look forward to. I mean, I can think of, like, through the 6-month academy that I went through a long time ago, we spent maybe a half a day on mental health for law enforcement. And if you look at 6 months, a half a day with so much information that's being done, like, teaching that work-life balance, like teaching that, like, we need to be able to look into our own, that have that introspective of being able to have the longevity of a career, being able to set us up long term instead of just this moment right now.
When I say what I'm about to say, if it rubs you the wrong way, then that's great because you're the exact person that I'm talking to. I think it's important to just identify the specific areas of your life where the job is crossed from priority into predator.
That's a really good one, because you see cops in general today, and first responders in general, like the firefighters, cops, like all of us, we chase that, okay, firefighters go after fires. Like that's what they strive for. That's what they want to do. Like cops, we chase those guns. We chase those FTYs. We chase any of that stuff to get that adrenaline high and to be able to have the fun and I'm making air quotes, that we have the fun in our jobs. Well, why don't we start redefining what fun is? I'm not saying not go out and work and do that stuff. I'm saying is, well, why don't you, I got to experience 101-year-old's birthday the other day. That has been something that, like, to me, that was super important for me to be there, to be able to share that time and space with her and be able to show and give back to the community in that instance, not about me, but about her.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.